MyAssistant is a task-based solution that gets the information and data from your Sage 300 CRE database to the right people at the right time, providing your key decision makers constant business visibility into the information they need. Your AP department can be notified when vendor insurance is about to expire, or notify a project manager when a job is over budget by a specific amount. With a variety of tasks that MyAssistant can accomplish, it's not a question of what it can do. It's a question of what process or task can I automate within my business. In terms of some of the tasks that we automate, you want to explore within your company what exactly you're currently doing and comparing and contrasting that with the MyAssistant tasks. Are you looking for, or is there a need to notify users when something happens within 300? A new job is set up, or a new employee is set up within payroll, or even notifying users when something has changed, when a specific opening date to a job, or excuse me, an in-process date to a job has changed, or specifically when employees' workers' comp code has changed, or even sending information to external customers or employees automatically. And also regularly scanning your data to verify if specific fields, such as custom fields, are changed. And also examining what exactly are some of the common questions you get every single day, or maybe even week or monthly. And it's working towards streamlining those processes so that once you set up a task, you don't essentially have to worry about it again. Same thing with standard documentation being sent externally to those users, and going back and thinking of problems that you're looking to avoid. Every single year we run into this during year end, or every single payroll we run into this issue, but we just kind of manage it as it comes up. That way we're addressing things ahead of time and setting procedures and processes in place to head it off at the pass. MyAssistant verifies this information off of tasks. These tasks can be broken down into three specific components: conditions, schedule, and actions. So with a specific task example, check the database for vendors with liability insurance that's expiring in 30 days. That MyAssistant task takes a look at your next component, which is the condition. How does it cross-reference that task with the data within the system? It basically takes a look at that specific vendor's liability insurance date and cross-references it with today's date plus 30 to ensure that we're taking a look at today's date of when the task is run and comparing that to the expiration date on the vendor setup that I've already entered in. Then we establish how often do you want to check this? Is this every day, every week, every month? I get to dictate that depending upon how often I want to be notified of that information. In this example, check on the 5th of each month at 5 a.m. That 5 a.m. is really key. And I use that in the example specifically because MyAssistant is also a resource saver. A lot of these tasks or reports or things that you need to run sometimes happen during the actual day, which obviously uses up resources on the server or your own machine, which can possibly bog down other users who are using the software. MyAssistant itself can be scheduled to run outside of business hours, so all of these tasks, reports, etc., are given to you when there's no one even in the actual system, so you don't have to worry about tying down those resources throughout the day. Next up is the action. Given that the condition is met, it's that time of the week or the day, what do you want me to fire off? In this example, email the vendor and request that the updated insurance information be sent back to the user. So that way, without even having to keep a spreadsheet or keep a list of these vendors and their dates, have MyAssistant take care of that for you and then email and request that information from the actual vendor directly. And with those examples, let's jump on over into MyAssistant and take a deeper look. One moment while I pull up my server here. So as we jump over to my 300 server, I have MyAssistant pulled up automatically. However, there may be different instances where you can pull that up from different places from your actual workstation. Specifically over in the Start menu, Scrolling on down to my Sage applications, I'll be finding it under my list of Sage resources down here. Just like any other module I would see, accounts payable GL. Most of the time, you'll be pulling it up directly from your desktop. Right over here under my MyAssistant option, just like all my other installed modules. Right from the get-go, without going into the actual dashboard, I'm able to examine and take a look at tasks directly from my desktop menu. So this would be an instance of where I'm firing off these tasks on demand versus a schedule. So if there's something to me specifically as someone in payroll, someone in GL, in the accounting, or someone who's the AP clerk, I'm able to give the necessary security permissions to specific tasks without granting them possible access into the actual application of accounts payable, GL, or payroll, giving you that added level of security in the event that you want to fire off these MyAssistant tasks to run those reports or emails without access to the actual application. Most of the time, as the admin user who's setting up tasks or creating new ones, you'll be operating from the actual MyAssistant application. As we jump back to our application, right from the get-go, we'll see several different subcategories and categories listed in here. MyAssistant out of the box comes with a long list of tasks for your company to use right out the gate. The great thing that I like to highlight about these tasks is a lot of these were actual customer requests when the software was developed. So in some way, shape, or form, a lot of our customers who pick up MyAssistant can probably use a handful of these tasks right when it gets installed. As an added measure, I've also uploaded the list of tasks to this webinar. You can access that attachment over on the right-hand side of your dashboard menu. That'll give you a great way to take a look at some of the tasks that come with the system. And when you purchase the software, you'll be able to use those tasks right from the get-go. But much like how we highlighted what goes into a task in those three components, we'll take a look at some of the ones I already have activated. Banks with insufficient cash, maybe even, send a vendor some direct deposit statements, or maybe even vendors missing 1099 information. Customers have said this is a great task to turn on and run on a scheduled basis so that when it comes to year end, all of your vendors who are marked as 1099 vendors verify that you have an actual federal tax ID in their setup before you start cranking out 1099s. Because we want to address and capture that before we get to that year end, not during year end. We're trying to save some time beforehand so we don't have to deal with that at the end of the year. So when we pull up this task and open it, we'll see those three components in place of condition, schedule, and the actual action, along with some additional features. The general information for a lot of our canned tasks will give you a brief description as to what's going on, the category, and the subcategory. This will also be where you can set up brand new tasks, and you'll see that these 6 components on the left break out that condition, schedule, and action. So here, it's looking through all my vendors and verifying that the 1099 information and recipient tax ID are present, and we move along to the condition. Adding in those details for the vendor to cross-reference those vendors that are marked to receive a 1099 and make sure that they have a federal tax ID. As we move into the schedule, this is where we look into how often do we want to run this. Is this on demand where I myself want to do it? Nah, I'd rather automate it so I don't got to worry about it anymore. Set it up once and forget. With that schedule, you can see I can dictate a start and end date if I want to run it for a specific time period. Maybe always at the end of the year, or I only want to run it for a while until maybe a new employee is here to make sure that they're not setting up anything wrong, and then it'll turn off after 3 months. Here's those daily, weekly, and monthly options to dictate when this task is run. Next up will be the email and the content of the information within. Here you'll see who's it going to, and this is where I have myself as a default, but you can pull in companies and contacts from your address book as well as set up email directories within MyAssistant to say, all my subcontractors or all my electricians or all of my payroll employees. You can maintain all of that within MyAssistant so that you can get groups of contacts or individuals as well. As we take a look at this email, I'm able to, manually type in a note or a paragraph or words within the email. I can also pull in fields directly from my 300 CRE database that's pertinent to the email of information that's being sent. So if I want to pull in, thank you for being a trusted, customer, insert AR customer name, and all that's pulling from the system to match what information is being sent externally. And towards the bottom, we see what records we're looking to pull into the email and table to give within this email. So in here, we have the vendor name, the contact, and the phone number. So it's giving me that list of who's missing, where I can send this off to an internal employee to say, contact these vendors. This can be also an opportunity where I go in and actually send this list or the actual AP vendor contacts and what information we're missing from them. As we move further down, additional information in terms of, do I want to send anything else with this? If there's some kind of CRE report I want to send along with it, I can do that as well. And finally, the notification option in terms of once this email fires off, what are the follow-up implications? Do I want to create a My Communicator task to follow up to make sure that I received it back, as well as due dates, all within the MyAssistant platform to ensure I have constant visibility. Once that task is run, it'll give you initially an activated checkbox to make sure it's turned on, how many notifications were created, and the last time it was run. Also, if we expand the actual task, it'll give you a live list of what it exactly pulled from your system directly here within MyAssistant. This can be also where your users can edit or update information as well, ensuring that the most current information is available back in the database without having the need or security permissions to go back into the database. In terms of what those emails vary in how they look, let me pull up one of these that I just received, specifically for a cost code over budget for a specific project perhaps. So me being a project manager of this specific job, I have it within the system to fire off this email every week on Friday morning to say, hey, send this project manager their specific jobs, the cost codes that are over budget, and give me that list. This is already a task that is in the system, and that once you turn it on, it simply looks at the project manager selected on the job setup, aligns that with an email, and then sends them the appropriate information. So this is just a quick example of one of the tasks that you can already turn on with the software and start to use. Some of the other ones that we have also is a accounts with prior year adjustments email. This is a great example in terms of year-end risk management. And I use that word specifically. I see MyAssistant as a risk management solution for your company. Instead of having to worry about someone checking everything, MyAssistant can maintain that for you within intervals to make sure things like prior year adjustments are caught before your fiscal year end. That way you're not trying to figure out what is this, where did it come from? As these prior year adjustments possibly hit your suspense account or prior year adjustments are made, you're immediately notified of them and then can correct them or speak to the user who may have made those entries and inquire as to why they were made. As we take a look at some of the additional features you can see within, all these subcategories allow your company to assess and process different factions within your departments and company. Things like your general ledger or accounting, I'm able to take a look at those prior year adjustments, as well as amounts possibly in suspense. When you're hitting year end, making prior year adjustments, sometimes a specific account isn't set up. You close your year, for some reason your ledger's out of balance. Every single time it seems to be a talk to a customer, some dollar or $10,000 are in suspense account. Rather than having to worry about it at the most inopportune times, which is usually the most important times, MyAssistant can notify you and manage that risk to ensure that it's caught ahead of time not during. And with a lot of those, job cost and project manager related tasks, you'll see there's a whole list as well as that I'm showing you, and you'll see in the PDF attached anything and everything you would want to know about what's going on with your projects, while also giving you the option and power to set up new tasks as well. If you're familiar with a lot of these, you'll see that right out the gate, I'm able to institute some RFI tasks, jobs over budget, correspondence items waiting to respond. All these things in some way, shape, or form impact not only a project, but your company's profitability. And that's why I kind of use that term, that risk management, with MyAssistant, because a lot of our customers are running into these things as they're happening. We want to use MyAssistant to get ahead of a lot of that. Now, as we kind of jump back to my slides, I touched upon a few of the examples from today, but we also want to take a look at some additional ones as well. In terms of those common uses that I already laid out, we assess kind of this business need, right? With MyAssistant, like I said, it can do a whole lot, but what are you wanting to answer or solve within your business with these notifications? Is it sending out payroll stubs to your payroll employees, notifying a payroll manager of some pay rate changes within your company? Not only as changes are being made, but maybe when changes need to be made at the end of the year or beginning of a new year. Like I showed you those prior year adjustments, or each Monday, Phil needs this report for his job. Then you're looking at what you're currently doing. Am I having to every single Friday manually send this stuff out in email, or even print this out and get it to the actual employee? Am I having to run payroll audit logs to find when pay rates have been changed for a specific plumber for this union and this class? Am I having to deal with prior adjustments every time I close a fiscal year and I'm not knowing where these amounts are coming from? And even more so, how am I going to constantly send these reports to the project managers? We just brought on 3 more. That means that's 3 more sets of reports that I have to send. MyAssistant helps out with a lot of that already out of the box. Right from the get-go, those payroll direct deposit stubs, MyAssistant already has a task to facilitate that process while also password protecting that direct deposit stub. So not only are you getting that information directly to the employee as it's being done in payroll, you're password protecting it to ensure, whatever password they select, that's the only way they can open up their stub. Next one is that employee pay rates have changed task within MyAssistant. I've had several customers use this one specifically to ensure that when employees' pay rates are changed, either the payroll manager is notified or there's an audit log of when those pay rates are changed and on what date. Same thing with prior adjustments. The exact same task I showed you, an email, is the exact same one you can use out of the box. And finally, the send project managers their reports. This is also a common one used by our customers for the back office to send project managers out in the field a certain set of reports that they want every single week or even every single day, depending upon the level of the project or how often they need that documentation out there in the field. Thank you very much for joining me once again. Have a great rest of your week.